Welcome to Let's Talk Jets Radio.
What's up, everybody? A special guest for the Jets Green Bay preview. Everybody knows you, but Matt O Leary, New York, on YouTube, Just Jets. You do everything, man. You got like 5 different shows. You're a man of the people, and you're the people's content creator. So what's up, man?
Thank you. Love the intro. And excited to come on and talk some New York Jets football, especially with a winning record. This is allowed, Tyson. I love it.
Dude, I'm not used to being excited in October, man. It's like we're used to doing draft right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy that it's not, looking at Tankathon every day. If we win, what happens and all that stuff. It's so much better this year.
Well, first of all, thank you for your time, man. It's a sunny Friday, so I know you have a lot of other things to do, but talking to me, I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. And thanks again for having me.
So before we go into Jets-Packers, which is a big game for both teams, is if you had to say a state of the Jets, like what's the state of the team right now? What would you say it is?
Yeah, just overall positive vibes. I think with Zach Wilson coming back and playing how he, has so far, obviously in the first half of the Pittsburgh game, a little bit of a slow start, but the fourth quarter and final couple of drives were huge. And, they're a really young team who you're starting to see the potential. I don't know if they're all the way there yet, but it's been fun. And I think, they're competing right now, which is really all that anyone could ask for. And they have a very big test these next 3 games. I think we'll get to see over the next 3 what this team really is. If they're going to be a pushover team, then we might see a regression. But if things are really different, then they should be competitive and maybe put themselves in a spot to be competing for a wild card place down the stretch.
Yeah, no, and this season, I guess, with the 2 biggest things where you want to see if you had the right head coach, if you had the right quarterback, you want to get really more of a definitive opinion as opposed to last year. What are your thoughts on Saleh so far?
Yeah, so, early on this year, I was pretty critical of Saleh with some of his in-game decisions, and I just didn't like how he handled some of the things like with the injuries with Mekhi Becton and Zach Wilson. I thought he spoke out of turn a little bit there, and it's made the Jets look bad with their injury timelines. It was just with the team struggling again. It was initially a little bit of a tough jump, but over the last few weeks, it's very obvious that players like playing for this guy, which is, obviously something that you want in today's NFL. And he's an easy guy to root for. It's not like, Adam Gase, who was just a bad coach and toxic. Like we're trying to figure out if Saleh's a good coach, but at least we know he's a good person and he's very easy to root for. So I'm personally rooting for the guy. I think he's improved a little bit, but still needs some work on some in-game managing. But I think it's obvious that the players love him, which is a good sign.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, man. I was critical too. I was going off the rails early in the season, and now it's like you see a lot of really good things. And I like the way he's handling this week because now the Jets have some success. They've won 2 games in a row. The fans are buying in. The media's everybody's starting to get positive around him. But it's like, you know what? Don't get too high. Don't get too low. He's staying even keeled. He's trying to keep his team somewhat in check. And that's what I'm really curious about this weekend because you go into this weekend, we'll start going the game a little bit, is like the Packers are coming off a London trip. So there could be potentially jet lag. But they're at home and they're going to be angry as hell because they've lost. And now it's like they're getting doubted. And when you doubt a team that's good, there's going to be some questions. So it's like, I'm curious to see, what the Packers are about, what the Jets are about, just in terms of their mindset and how they start the game off.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously the Packers lost a game that most people had them winning against the Giants in London. And then the week prior, they won against New England at home, but they needed overtime to do it. It wasn't, an easy win against the 3rd string quarterback. So it's been a couple of weeks since the Packers have looked their best. And I'm sure they're obviously going to come back and be, motivated. They were embarrassed in London, but, I think this is a Jets team where they're so young. It's almost like they don't even know any better. And that's a good thing because the Jets have this narrative for so long that it's the same old Jets. And, we all know what it is because we've watched this team for so long, but these guys haven't been here through all that. They're building their own thing. And I think if they, are serious about proving that they're different, they'll at least compete with them, right? Like, I think it's tough to say, oh, you have to go on the road and beat Green Bay in Lambeau after they were embarrassed. Like, that's a tough task. Is it possible? Of course, but I think at minimum, they should just be competitive in this game.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. They're a 7-point underdog for a lot of reasons. The Packers are still a very good team. Been there, done that with a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback. We know all that. And I love your point where they don't know any better. Like when the players get asked, especially like Sauce Gardner, Brees Hall, get asked about, well, this team used to lose games like this. Like we weren't even here.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know about the same old Jets. We don't know about Adam Gase. We don't even care about it. Like we're worried about this week, today. And I like that Saul keeps saying that. Like this is a young team. Like we're worried about the future, like now and the future, and nothing looking back. So I expect the Packers to play very well. Not gonna. I just think they're going to be a galvanized unit. They're at home. There's a home field advantage. I know a lot of Jet fans are going, which is super cool. But there is, that's going to be the whole different environment here because the Jets have played decent teams that had backup quarterbacks. You're now playing a team that has legitimate talent on both sides of the ball that can kind of take advantage of some of your weaknesses. So if you go to Packers offense right now, their offensive line struggling, which is something interesting when you look at the Jets defense. What are your thoughts on the Packers game plan going into this game?
Yeah, I definitely agree that the line's been struggling, and it's not the same, receiver core that we're used to with the Packers. Randall Cobb's still there, but he's not the same player he was, almost 10 years ago now. Devontae Adams is gone. It's not like, the Jordy Nelson Packers where he was throwing all over the field. He's still trying to build chemistry with this young receiving core. And, for the Packers, I really think they're going to come out and try to run the ball. I like their 1-2 punch of Jones and Dillon a lot. I think they're two really good backs, and Jones has been averaging over 6 yards a carry so far this year. So for me, I think it's a really big test for this Jets rush defense because I have full faith in Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed being able to, keep up with, Lazard and Dobbs and all those guys that they have at the wide receiver position. But I think if I'm, Matt LaFleur and the Packers, I'm going to come out and say, all right, I'm going to use one of the best running backs in football, run him a bunch and see if you can stop him.
No, I 100% agree. I think that's going to try to establish that. Then you had the play action pass. And then, and the Jets run defense hasn't been that good. It hasn't been consistent at all. And I think if anything, the Packers probably try to attack the Jets linebackers and the safeties who haven't been playing well at all. They always seem slow, a step behind, and the tackling's been inconsistent. So, they have Tunyon, they have guys, but I think if anything, if you give Aaron Rodgers time for a play action pass, you're gonna be in trouble because even with, a growing receiver group, I mean, Cobb's obviously a veteran, but like he's gonna find holes in your defense, man.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's so important for the defensive line to look like they did the past 2 weeks. I think they've been really good and getting pressure and getting after the quarterback, which has really helped things. But if they go back to what they were early on in the year where they were struggling and underachieving, I don't know how you could remain competitive in this game. I think it's so important for, Carl Lawson to continue to play the way that he has. And Quincy Williams and John Franklin Myers have been great. And Bryce Huff, who they're finally using, has come in and gotten a ton of pressure. I think it's so important for that pass rush to get home when Aaron Rodgers does drop back, because if they're not, then it'll look like, against Cincinnati when they gave Joe Burrow all day and he was able to carve him up.
Yeah, and getting Quincy Williams back, we're not sure what level of him coming back, but having his speed back will help. But the one thing, too, I'm interested in is if they can't stop the run, like the Jets have corners that can press. I mean, I love DJ Reed. Obviously, Sauce is there. That corner tandem's good where you can match up man to man, and you're not worried about Cobb or anybody else. You're like, we can handle these guys. But I worry about the Jets' run defense isn't there. They go back into those friggin' zones, dude, that drive you crazy because that's where Aaron Rodgers is going to pick you apart. I mean, if you can't have guys running free and you're not getting through, that's what gets me frustrated with like Ulbrich and Saleh and their schemes sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. And you're kind of just, again, you're going to give Rodgers then time to throw. And if he has time, he's going to find the soft spot in the zone. Reed and Sauce are more than capable of playing man. They've been phenomenal to start this year. And even Michael Carter in the slot's been really, really good. They're one of the best, if not the best corner duo in the NFL right now. That's how good they've been. And, I think it's time that they are, given a little bit of a test, and it is a big test against, future Hall of Fame quarterback here. But if they don't, and if they start to go back into that zone defense, it could be a very long day for this defense.
Now, what are your thoughts on the Jets defense up the middle? I've been kind of critical of Mosley over the last couple of weeks. He just seems like either a step slow. I think he's hurt more than he's giving on to. He's hurt. And then Jordan Whitehead, who I love the signing, I thought was going to be a thumper like the enforcer that would just like start lighting guys up and doing things. It just seems like up the middle, they're not as good as I thought they were going to be. What are your thoughts on the defense like in those spots?
Yeah, I think it's becoming a little obvious that CJ Mosley has lost a little bit of a step. He's not very good in coverage. I think he's been okay against the run. Maybe not as much the last few weeks, but Whitehead hasn't been as impactful as what I thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
He had a good first game for the Jets against the Ravens where he was flying around, but since then it's been a little quiet, and he obviously let up that big play against the Bengals. But the one guy who's really impressed me up the middle is Quan Alexander. I think he's
Yeah.
been great. I think he's the best linebacker on this team, and I don't think it's particularly close.
Yep.
My concern, I guess, is with Quincy Williams coming back. I know how much this defensive staff really loves him, and early on this year, they were pretty much playing exclusively Quincy over Quan, and Quan's snaps were really, really low. And I don't want them to necessarily take him off the field because he's really the only linebacker that really has any chance in coverage, and he's just flying around making plays. So while overall the linebackers and safeties as units need more work, I think if you're looking for a positive, Quan Alexander would be that for me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree there. Quan's been amazing, man. Like that's a guy for the value you got him at too. He's making nothing, so it's really good. Now the defensive line's interesting because Jermaine Johnson's out. Then Salah kind of hinted that Vinny Curry could be up this week, which would be interesting. I'm like, all right, I get it, but like I don't want to see Bryce Huff lose any snaps. I don't want to see Michael Clemens lose any snaps. Like who's going to be the odd man out if he does come up? Like how do they handle that? Because I think I think Salah really likes Vinny Curry. You can tell he does.
Yeah, I mean, he's that veteran presence, and they seem to lean towards the veterans, which a part of me understands, but I think they almost do it to a fault because what we saw in the preseason from Michael Clemens was really impressive. I think he's earned an opportunity, and Bryce Huff hasn't really he's played 2 games and hasn't gotten a ton of reps, but when he's out there, he makes a lot happen. And it seems like anytime he's on the field, something good happens. So I think it'd be a shame if Vinny Curry comes in and takes snaps away from those guys, but he's been a guy he did it in Philadelphia for like 2 decades. It felt like he's been around forever, Vinny Curry. But I just like what we've seen from Bryce Huff, and I agree. He's someone who you can't take off the field. If Jermaine Johnson's out this week, then I'd be trying to get Michael Clemens and Bryce Huff snap count up.
Yeah, I completely agree. Not like I get the whole veteran thing. I like Vinny Curry. Like I you root for him. A guy's overcome a lot, but it's like the youth movement and the guys are contributing. Like Bryce Huff, he doesn't play enough in my opinion. You have Carl Lawson, you have those guys, but he's like instant energy, instant rush, instant pressure. Michael Clemens does a lot of really good things in terms of hustling, getting after it. So if Vinny Curry's not bringing that kind of intensity, that kind of speed and athleticism to the field, it's like, all right, like you got it's a fine balance. So then you go on the offensive side of the ball, which is really, really interesting because now it's like we talked about their Packers offensive line, the Jets offensive line is kind of makeshift too, because it's like, where's AVT going to play this week? Because every week it's a surprise. But, you got Dwayne Brown set at left tackle. I'm guessing AVT's at right. They have a week now playing together. So now they have, at least they're going to have their line calls down and there's some kind of chemistry, which is a positive. But they're facing a front that'll get after it, man. I mean, I know Rashawn Gary's banged up with his toe, but, dude, they still can generate a lot of pressure. I think some Jet fans are kind of discounting that and saying, you know what, this is not going to be that bad. They're going to get challenged on the offensive line, man.
Yeah, no doubt. You're 100% right. The Packers they're going to try to get after the quarterback. That's what they do. And it's a big test. I will say AVT has been, if not the overall MVP, at least the offensive MVP for this team because his versatility to play right guard and then left tackle and right tackle. And I thought he looked really good last week at right tackle. And Herbig, who's come in and played right guard the last 2 weeks, I think he's been fine. So I think the two of them on the right side is going to be important. And for the Jets, it's a matter of doing everything they can to keep Zach Wilson upright. It's been a pretty drastic difference with Zach Wilson compared to Joe Flacco at avoiding the rush. I think if Flacco, played against the Steelers, he would have been sacked like 10 times, where Wilson was only sacked once or twice. But I think it's going to be potentially a day where Wilson has to move around a little bit, but also could be a day for the Jets to use their run game, which has been pretty good.
Yeah, I think the game plans are almost the same. Where the Packers are struggling against the run a little bit. They have, I like Preston Smith. I like the Packers rush and stuff like that. But you could offset it by running the ball down their throat. I think Tomlinson, if I'm being completely transparent, has been a little bit, not where I thought he'd be. But it could be getting used to having a new left tackle every week next to him or whatever else. I don't know. But you want to start to see him get a little more physical. Establish that, run Breece Hall, run Michael Carter. And then, like, you want Aaron Rodgers to have play action. You give Zach Wilson play action where he could do the same thing as last week, man, where you just kind of manage the game. Take what the defense gives you. You don't have to force anything. Get the ball to the running back side of backfield. Maybe feature the tight ends a little bit more. Take advantage of some mismatches there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think it's such an important thing for the Jets to really try to establish the run. If you look at the Packers, they've had some success against quarterbacks. Quarterbacks aren't throwing. It's strange because they allow a really high completion percentage and passer rating, but they don't necessarily allow a ton of yards and
Yeah.
touchdowns against, where their rush defense is like bottom 3 in the league in
Yep.
defensive run defense DVOA. So I think it's, if you're going to attack them, I would try to run the ball and then build off the play action. And I don't necessarily think this is a game where you want Zach or need Zach to throw 35, 40 times. I think if he's throwing, high 20s and low 30s, somewhere in that range, and, building off the play action and kind of, managing the game where like he did last week, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I feel like a lot of people hear the term game manager and that has a negative connotation, but for a young quarterback, to me, it shows growth, because last year he was trying to play hero and making mistakes and trying to force balls into tight windows. And instead, he's kind of just taking what the defense is giving him. And let's not forget, last week he was, inches away from 2 passing touchdowns if Breece Hall doesn't go down on the 1 yard line or half yard line. So I'm not really worried about the stat line there, but I think he, just settles in and kind of looks like he did last week.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Packers defense kind of like, it was kind of like the Jets defense last week. It's like bend but don't break. Like you give up some rushing yards, but then you get after the quarterback. I think they kind of do the same thing. And I agree about Zach, man. What I like about him right now is he looks comfortable in the offense. He looks comfortable in the huddle. He knows what he's doing. He can check out. He kind of can figure things out pretty quickly. And he's getting rid of the ball. He's spreading it around. And in terms of spreading it around, it's like if you want to go to that intermediate passing game, I'm wondering if they get Elijah Moore a little bit more involved, man. I know they kind of force things to Garrett Wilson at times, but it seems like Moore is open, but he's just not getting it. Do you think they maybe try to change that up a little bit?
Yeah, I think, with Elijah, I don't really like how he's been used so far this year. I think he needs to be in the slot a little bit more. And I feel like they've been taking him down the field, and then it's been Corey Davis and Garrett Wilson underneath. And I think, like we saw last year at his best, that's what he was doing. He was in the slot and doing some of those underneath stuff. But also at the same time, I think as teams start to see like, hey, the Jets are having a lot of success, over the middle with guys like Garrett Wilson and Corey Davis, then they're going to try to cheat in. And then maybe with Zach's arm, that'll allow them to get the ball down the field to Elijah Moore. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I know it's been a slow start for Elijah Moore, but I don't necessarily think that it's been like that he's either regressed or we overhyped him. I think he's going to be fine. I just think it's more so of they're taking advantage of what defenses are giving them. And if they're not giving them the down the field, which it feels like they aren't, and Elijah's the one who's going downfield, then he's not going to be as involved.
Yeah, and I would switch those two. I put Corey Davis on the outside, put Elijah Moore on the inside, and it's just a size difference makes a big impact. But it's a little. I agree. It's kind of strange sometimes. Then you look at the tight end position where Tyler Conklin is like a boomer bust guy. He's going to get a big play or he's going to fumble and drop it. Like it's just. But then like in the clutch, he always comes up big, which is good. He makes those big catches, stuff like that. But Uzuma has been kind of slow to get active in the passing game, but his blocking has been phenomenal, man. He's mauling guys in there. And then Ruckert's kind of just, I think, just figuring everything out. He gets a few snaps a game. What are your thoughts on the tight ends? And what kind of role can they play in this game right now?
Yeah, I think they should be involved. And, we saw with Mark Sanchez how a tight end could be a young quarterback's best friend. And you have 3 capable tight ends with Ruckert, Uzama, and Conklin. Conklin's been frustrating for me because I think he's flashed and looked really, really good at times. But it's like he does something dumb like once a week. He has that 1 or 2 plays a week where it's like, what is he thinking? Whether it's, a drop or a fumble or a penalty. It's something. Uzama, I'm very surprised that they haven't utilized him more as a pass catcher. I assumed Conklin would be the one used more as a pass catcher, but I thought it would be closer to an even split, as right now it's pretty much only exclusively Conklin as a receiver. But Ruckert, I agree. I think they're kind of taking him on slow. I think that's more of a developmental role. I like him as a blocker. I think he is arguably their best blocking tight end, even though Uzama's been really good blocking as well. But I would say I'd like to see Uzama get more involved as a pass catcher, and maybe not so much to Conklin because he has the tendency to do, his weekly something dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I had that feeling even watching training camp and preseason that they loved Conklin. They became enamored with him. And like with other positions, they kind of favored him over other things. They ignore some of the deficiencies, which is just seems like that's what this staff does. They kind of force certain players in no matter what. And I agree. Uzama had so many things with Burrow. Like Joe Burrow hit him so many times in big spots and he made big catches. So it's like, hopefully he gets that chance with Zach Wilson. So now you look at the game overall, man. I'm fascinated to see how the Jets come out. A lot of times in the past, they always started out slow. They were down 7-0, down 10-0. They came back, but the last couple of weeks, they came out a different mindset, which is good. You like to see that, especially on defense, man. I think there's a lot of pressure on the defense to come out fast, furious, and establish the tone, establish the mindset there. And then, the offense, it could be a struggle, but it's just like, I think there's a lot of pressure on Son Ulbrich this week.
Yeah, 100%. And we talked about it up against Aaron Rodgers is no easy task, but you have to show that your defense is taking that next step. I think this year, all anyone asked for was to just show progress and take that step forward. And if they play a competitive game like they have the last couple of weeks, then that's great. But if they go back to the defense that was allowing teams to go for 40 points every week, then that's probably not a great sign. So I agree. It's a really huge test, as is the next 3 games. You have the Packers and then Denver and then New England back at home. And I think that's a really good litmus test to tell where they are in their compete level.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. The point spread, I think last time I saw is 7. So they're a big underdog. A lot of Jet fans are saying this is a game we can win. Jets can win it, but I'm not walking in overly confident. Like, we're going to smack the Packers around. I think you got to play a very high level of football because you're playing a very good team. How you start's going to be a big thing. And he's still Aaron Rodgers. So in terms of the spread, how are you looking at this game? How do you think it's going to play out? And we'll start with that.
Yeah, I definitely think the Jets cover the number. That point spread seems way too big. I think it'll be a 1-score game. I think it'll be a tight game. Maybe like honestly, I wouldn't shock me if the Jets win, but I think the Packers probably win by a field goal, something like 30-27, something like that, which if that's the case, I think you sign up for that because that shows that your young offense, is competing and that Zach Wilson's competing. And, no matter where the Jets are as a team, whether they're been good over the years or poor the last few years, they always seem to play Green Bay tough, whether it was in 2018, Sam Darnold's rookie year. That was arguably Sam's best game as a pro. He was great that day. Or when Geno played them in 2014, they were up like 21-0 before they unfortunately lost that one. But they always seem to play them tight no matter, where they are, if they're good or not. So I don't think they're just going to roll over and die because they're going on the road to Lambeau.
No, I agree. I mean, it's like you're only as good as your last performance. So now we're all fired up fans. Our expectations are higher because you won 2 in a row and you see a lot of good things. Like you say, you know what? DJ Reed and Sauce can match up. We have the pass rush. We have the running game. I think the game's going to be competitive as well. I see the same thing. Like, it could be like a 27-24. I think they cover the spread as well. And to me, it's like if they lose a competitive game, not that you're okay with losing, but that's a good thing, man. Like you're on the road, tough environment, very good team. You competed for 4 quarters. That's a stepping stone. You're making progress. Like you said, you're not giving up 40 points. You're not, it's like there's not that you want moral victories, but to me, that's a good step. Like you're still making progress. That, it's like that's where the direction we're going. They find a way to win this game, then, a lot of things can start changing. Wow, this team is for real. You won 3 games in a row, and like that. I just think that I don't think we're going to wake up Monday morning and be like, you know what, same old Jets. I think we're going to see a really good performance on Sunday.
Yeah, totally. Even if it's like the last year, the game against Tampa where they ended up losing, but like that was arguably Zach's best game last year. And yeah, they lost, and you would have liked to see them come out and, and pull off that win over, the defending champs from the year prior. That would have been awesome. But, I remember waking up the next day being like, all right, they went toe to toe with them, and it looked like our young quarterback took a step forward. I think more than likely that's probably the scenario we're ending up with, but who knows? It's the NFL, and the Packers haven't looked great, so maybe they could get an upset win.
Yeah, and if they do, and then in regardless of the game on Sunday, has your expectations for this team changed? I know we talked in the preseason. We're kind of saying, 7 or 8 wins, competitive games, and then be relevant in November, December. Like we want to have, meaningful games in December, which everybody said for months. Has anything changed for you? Are you, because like our show on Tuesday, hey, you know what? There's a chance we can make the playoffs. And I'm like, can we just beat Green Bay first? Like, I want to keep it real, but has anything changed for you in terms of what this team can do this year?
Not exactly. Like I would be pretty surprised if they ended up winning or getting a wild card spot. But I think well, before the year I said 7 or 8 wins. I think if it was 7 at this point, I'd be kind of upset because that would be what, 4 and 8 down the stretch.
Yeah.
That's not great. I think there's some winnable games on the schedule, and there's some teams who everyone thought was going to be good that really hasn't. Like Denver, for instance. I think that's a game where you should probably win against the Broncos, but it's I think for either moving from 7 or 8 wins to up to like 8 or 9 wins, so maybe like a +1 difference from where I was before the year. I don't know if that's going to be enough to be a playoff team, but that'll keep you in contention through, Thanksgiving and into December, which is really, I think, all anyone could ask for.
No, I agree, man. We're talking about, we're usually winning 4 or 5 games every year. We're talking 8 or 9. It's like, this is like, we can't handle 3 games of winning right now. We're out of our minds. So it's been wild. So first of all, Matt, thank you so much for your time. I definitely appreciate it. I know you're a very busy man. Everybody knows who you are by now, but give out all your information, how everybody can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much anywhere on social media at Matt O Leary NY. We're talking Jets, trying to keep it light and have some fun. We do Just Jets podcast comes out every Wednesday. We're doing the Jet Report, which is live Monday through Thursday at 2 p.m. on YouTube, and just reaction and coverage throughout the week. It's a ton of fun, so make sure to check it out.
Matt, thank you once again. I know you're a hockey guy too, right?
Yeah, I'm an Islanders fan. They lost last night, unfortunately, in their opener.
And you're a Mets fan too, I guess, right?
Yeah, and that was a tough weekend too. So,
So
listen, I'm just good with my Jets right now.
And I had prime time a Met fan. Dude, he was angry as hell too. So I completely understand that. So thank you again, Matt. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, Tyson. Thanks again.